Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, we glorify you for all the blessings you have bestowed upon us. We are truly grateful for them. Thank you for allowing us today to meet and share our knowledge and time with one another virtually. May you send forth your divine wisdom to our speaker as they impart effectively their God-given gift to all of us. May they be blessed as they continue to share their expertise with the people who needs them. Bless the participants as well as so that they will be able to obtain vital information from this activity. May you send forth your Holy Spirit so that after this webinar, we may share what we learn in the spirit of your love and generosity, especially during these trying times. May we be able to bring glory to you, Lord, in everything that we do. Amen. That in all things, God may be glorified.
Bayang magiliw, pelas ng silangan, nananag ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisili. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mabaga, may nilagang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Pag-isap ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na naglilinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pang mali magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng walhati pagsinta mo'y langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pamay mga pirang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. This is the school we wish to sing, of a school to honor and revere, a temple built by men of firmness, a mold for you to walk with pride, for He will always be united, although we tread on distant lands. We all shall cherish what you've taught us, that you wholeheartedly gave forth. Iko University, burning torch of wisdom, fount of courage, hope and love, seed of truth and light. Iko University, burning torch of wisdom, fount of courage, hope and love, seed of truth and light.
Good morning, CScians and fellow computer science students. I am 𝐸𝐴NJ ang taong hindi marunong matulog sa gabi, your Access Junior Counselor and host for today's event. With the gradual acquisition of modern technology to the contemporary world, we may find it hard to keep track of the latest developments and trends in the computer industry, especially when it has dominated our tech-dependent lives. So, to get in touch with the latest trends in computing, we are warmly welcoming everyone to today's event hosted by none other than Ma'am Lani Maceda, DIT, spearheaded by BU Access Academic Consortium of Computer Science Students, Research Talk, a primer on natural language processing held today, March 2, 2022, 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. with our honorary guest speaker, Mr. Joseph Marvin Imperial. I hope that everyone is comfortable, and now let us proceed with the opening remarks. Well, let us introduce ang ating pinaka-poging and event head BU Access President, Mr. Justin J. Baldovino, for his opening remarks.
Hello everyone. So, maganda naman Lian nang introduce mo sa akin. So, hello and welcome everyone. I am pleased to welcome you to the webinar on natural language processing. In this virtual conference room, we get to learn ideas and topics regarding with NLP as a branch of computer science. Specifically, the branch of AI or artificial intelligence concerns with giving computers the ability to understand text and spoken words in much the same way human beings can. As a computer science student, I look forward to learning various concepts and other branches of our field. I believe that by participating in this webinar, we are in the right place and the right time. Together, let us accelerate the exchange of ideas and scaling up of good practices. I am also looking forward to future events with our guest speaker. Feel free to drop questions on our topic or share your struggles and experiences. We'll answer your questions by the end of each guest session. The moderator will collect the most upvoted questions so we can answer them for you at the end of the presentation. Thank you, and again, welcome to this webinar.
Yes, you heard it first from Kuya Jas. We are at the right place at the right time. Sabi nila, AI is significantly getting prevalent in the 20th century indeed. And Kuya Jas really made some very good points. And now, let us proceed with the house rules of today's program. Of course, we have a couple of rules and reminders to keep in mind for our participants today. First is to kindly turn on your camera during the event. Second is to mute your microphone to avoid any distractions. And third is feel free to ask any questions, but this will be reserved in the last portion of the event in the Q&A after the presentation. Now let us talk about our objectives for today's program. Our first learning objective is to learn the current trends in computing, specifically in NLP. Second is to gain and instill learning among the students and help them create knowledge that is contributory to the existing body of knowledge in computing. Third, and last but not the least, is you must always have fun, and I hope that this will be a fruitful event. So I hope that every guest will enjoy this program. Now that we're done discussing the objectives and the house rules, let us proceed. Wala na tayo paligoy-ligoy pa, and i-introduce na natin ang ating guest speaker. Our speaker has had a distinguished career towards his expertise on writing articles. Noteworthy examples are making use of Filipino WordNet, for some, a complex Connect 4 solving benchmark, and the multidimensional scaling algorithm for dimensionality reduction. He researches on the intersection of machine learning and NLP, specifically in the areas of text complexity, story generation, and social media. He is currently affiliated with the Computer Science Department and the Human Language Technology of National University. Let us warmly welcome faculty member and NLP researcher of National University, Mr. Joseph Marvin Imperial.
Hello, everyone. Am I the next one to talk, or si Ma'am Lani is going to say something?
Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Ma'am. Good morning. Good morning, Ma'am.
Good morning. I will just be talking later na lang. Ikaw na muna, Joseph. Thank
Okay
you.
po. Thank you, Ma'am. Okay. Wow, pressured. Thank you for doing this event. I remember when I was in BU third year, I was secretary of Access, and then when I was a fourth year student, I was vice president. So I'm really happy to see that you're continuing with these events because it definitely helped me when I was a student. It definitely helped me um, build my career, learn some extracurricular activities, and overall, it's it's going to complete your student life. So okay, so for those who are here, I really advise you to join Access. Have a holistic type of learning both inside and outside of the classroom. Okay, so maybe I can start with my talk here. It's going to span, I don't know, I think around 1 hour and 30 minutes, but I'm not sure how much time we have. I think we just have around 10, so maybe I can shorten some of the sections a bit. But essentially, we're going to discuss about introduction to NLP, how to do NLP research. Some of you might probably have to start thinking of topics related to your thesis. I'm not sure if you're at that stage, but it's a really pressuring time because you have to think of the criterias, the conditions of what a thesis topic demands. Okay, so I'm here to give you ideas in that line of research. Okay. Okay, so can I have permission to share my screen? I'm not sure if you can hear the background noise, but if you can hear the noise, then please inform me so that I can probably change my microphone here. Okay. So share screen. Okay, so the title of my talk is Primer to Natural Language Processing Research. This is actually a repeat talk of my previous research talk with CSP, Computing Society of the Philippines. Okay, you can probably hear the bell because I'm here at NU with Special Interest Group of Natural Language Processing headed by Ma'am Lani. Okay, so I want to help you kickstart your research with NLP because it's a very promising field, especially if you're going to use machine learning integrated with NLP. Okay, so I'm Joseph Marvin Imperial, and you've probably heard the introduction by our access officers here. If you want to know more about my research engagements, what I've done in the past after graduating BU, so that's probably going to be helpful on your part, you can visit my site at www.josephimperial.com. And one thing that I would have to advise you is after graduating or after building your career, you have to create your own website to have some sort of web presence. Okay, put yourself over the internet and then let other people know what you're doing so that you can network properly. Okay, so the goals of this talk is, of course, to help you understand basics and purpose of NLP. Why are we doing NLP? Why not other sectors or fields of machine learning? How can NLP help the Philippines overall? And I want to also inform you of the interesting research problems and opportunities as a student in the field of NLP. Okay, so it's not, sorry. Yeah, so thank you for sharing my website. So again, this is just an introductory workshop. So I'm very happy to answer some of your questions later on, because when I first also heard about NLP, I was like, why do we need to study languages? What's the use? What's the practicality? Okay, so I hope to answer those questions. Okay, natural language processing. So you can actually try to split these three words into two: natural language plus processing. Okay, so the natural language part, or maybe I can just read first the definition. So this is your very standard definition of NLP. It's a subfield of computer science concerned with the interactions, emphasis on the word, between computers and human languages, okay, or natural languages. So if we split natural language processing into two, you have your natural language, your spoken language, your written language, your sign language, plus processing. The processing is the computer part, where we make use of algorithms, of mathematical formulas, statistical formulas to help us understand language. Okay, and the goal of NLP is to help computers process languages. Okay, because we all know computers are very smart devices. Okay, very smart calculators. They can crunch numbers in less than a second. Okay, so how can we exploit such computing power to understand more about the complexity of a language? Okay, languages are very complex. For example, the word kain has more than 15 what do you call this, forms: kumain, kakain, kinain, and so on. So those intricacies, those complexities of a language, how can we teach the computers to understand them? And once we teach computers how to understand such complexities, then how can we use that particular advantage in our everyday life? Okay. Bless you. Anyways, computers plus language, this usually is seen as magic. For example, if you activate your what application is that? Maps application on your iPhone or Google Maps, you can actually try to use the voice activation or voice recognition to help you navigate with ways or roads. So how did that work? How can we make use of languages to help us with our everyday lives, everyday needs, and so on? Okay. So I would like to quote, before we look at the examples here, I would like to quote one of my favorite researchers in NLP, Sebastian Ruder. He is a researcher at DeepMind, which is a UK-based artificial intelligence company. So he said here that we want to build models or natural language processing models that enable people to read news that was not written in their language. So that's one advantage. Or ask questions about their health when they don't have access to a doctor, and many more. So this kind of gives you an idea of how NLP can really help us in our everyday lives. Okay. So for example, you want to learn about, let's say, you want to read an article, but it was not written in the language that you're used to. It's written in Russian. It's written in French. How can NLP help you understand the article? Okay, so you have your machine translation. And then how can NLP help you navigate or help you buy something from an e-commerce website? So you have your chatbots, you have your e-commerce assistants, which you can plug in your questions, and they can automatically understand what you're asking about and then give you the answers that you need. Okay. So I'm going to show some examples, of course, NLP applications, and then later on, a few research-based examples from my research products that I have accumulated over the years. So here you have NLP applications. Where can we see NLP? Or where can we see implementations of natural language processing? Number one would be the sentiment analysis of product reviews. Although sometimes it's not entirely seen, but every time you say something about a product, may it be on Twitter, on their own website, on Facebook, these companies are collecting those responses or collecting those reviews. Okay, so for example, if you own a product or if you own a mini company and then you want to hear more about what people think of your product, where should you improve, what aspect should you look into, then NLP can definitely help you learn about what people think. Okay, and that's what we call sentiment analysis. We want to understand what people think with a particular product. So for example, here, food reviews, movie reviews. So people can actually send their thoughts and sentiments with a particular movie, and then those who are behind the movie or those who are business owners can look at what people are thinking, and then how can they improve on that. So if I say that this particular phone, let's say in my review, is great, the user interface is intuitive, as you can see in my example, but the battery is not long lasting. So as a business owner, how can I improve my services? How can I improve my product? Okay, so I have to look at what users think and I can do that with NLP. Chatbots. So you probably heard of, if you open Lazada, if you open, what's the other one? Shopee, and probably any e-commerce website, I'm sure that there is an implementation or an application of a chatbot assistant there, because it helps you with your queries. They can help you navigate through different categories of products. If you're trying to find something but the interface seems too difficult for you to navigate, then you can ask questions or ask some help with the chatbot assistants, and then they can probably redirect you with a link provided. Okay, so that's an example of NLP as well. Translator systems, of course, very obvious. Google Translate, although it's not perfect, because again, language is very complex. So even Google and their team and their army of world-class researchers are still struggling sometimes with translators, because there are certain challenges that exist when you try to transform the structure of one language to the other. Okay, so how do you transform English to French and vice versa? How do you transform a language, a low resource language, let's say Bicol, to French? So are there any differences in the structure, in how we phrase our sentences? So those things remain as challenges in NLP. Okay, so natural language processing, it's actually a very broad field, which involves linguistics, okay? But I'm not saying that you have to be a linguistics major to do NLP research. What you have to do is to learn the foundational concepts in the type of natural language processing research that you are doing. So for example, if I want to do sentiment analysis, then what's the linguistic component that we usually study for sentiment analysis? So if you look here, it makes use of context. Okay, you have to know the context to really understand what the user is trying to tell you. And you have to focus on the adjectives, which object is the adjective being targeted to. So that probably falls into the semantics, okay, in this part, in the middle part, in the semantics interpretation. So when you say semantics, it's about the meaning of the sentence. So if I am going to do a thesis study on sentiment analysis, then I would have to read, let's say, the foundational knowledge, a few background of semantic interpretation. How does words and their arrangement build the meaning or the context of a sentence? Okay, so again, you don't need to be a master of linguistics to study NLP. Just read about that part where you're studying. Okay. Okay, and NLP, it gets its power from integration with ML or integration with artificial intelligence. So here you have artificial intelligence, and then you have a subset called machine learning, which is the study of making computers learn from data without explicitly following a strict set of examples. I'm not sure if you have a machine learning elective, but if not, then I suggest to exploit the internet. Okay, if you don't know anything about NLP, there's millions of resources online. You just need to use them. Okay, so NLP, it gets its power from machine learning and deep learning, where deep learning is the smaller subset of ML. But the catch with deep learning is that it's often computationally expensive. Okay, but you can still do NLP without such resource. So number one, the simplest type of NLP is rule-based NLP. Okay, so you can think of this as your if-else statements in your programming classes. This is a tried and true, proven to work well, but the disadvantage of rule-based NLP is that it only reaches a certain level of performance. If you really want to have human level or barely human level performance, then you would have to resort to more complex algorithms such as deep learning. Okay, so when you say rule-based NLP, you have a set of predefined rules, and you try to create or try to train your model with such rules in mind. Okay, so for example, here, your basic parse tree, in a sentence, you can actually try to split the noun phrase, the verb phrase, and other components. Okay, so if you want to understand more about different parts of a sentence, such as article, what is a noun, which one is a verb, and so on, you can follow algorithms on parsing. Okay, but again, it's an old, or what do you call this? It's a manual type of approach with NLP. Okay, and you may encounter some challenges, such as if you want to deal with, or if you have a lot of data, then you would have to manually replicate the process. Okay, so there are some disadvantages as well with rule-based NLP. Meanwhile, with machine learning NLP, machine learning plus NLP, it makes use of statistical learning algorithms such as linear classifiers, probabilistic modeling to get the pattern from the data. Okay, so I'm trying hard to explain it in a simple way. So this involves training some parameters and then following or splitting your data into two, training on the larger part of your data to really get the patterns and hidden structures of your data, and then evaluating your model from the smaller subset. Okay, so for example here, this is a sentence where you're trying to get, or you're trying to think of the most probable next word that can occur from the sentence. Okay, so for example here, sentence problems turning into, you can actually create a model that can predict the next word. So that's called next word prediction, obviously. Okay, so it makes use of statistical learning algorithms such as SVM. I'm not sure if you're familiar with support vector machines or say linear regression, but those types of algorithms are used for NLP as well. Okay, and this one, maybe I can show you some examples later on. So deep learning NLP, which is a more complex version of machine learning NLP. So this makes use of neural network-based methods to understand your data or understand the patterns from your data. Okay, so when you say neural network, think of this as an architecture or a structure that is loosely inspired by the neurons of your brain. Okay, so if you know what a neuron is, um, it's an information processing unit in our brains, but we have millions of it, okay? And it helps us think, it helps us control our body and so on. It helps us process information generally, okay? So that particular architecture inspired what you call as a neural network. And we can use neural networks to understand and apply or do NLP. So for example, here in figure 1, as you can see, a visualization of a neural machine translator system segmented into components. So this is just a machine translator system that makes use of a neural network. So for example, here, this is a German sentence, and then you can use neural networks to help or to train a model that can translate from German to English. Okay. So again, this is just one way of doing NLP, but it's one of the most used method due to its near human level performance. So if you're going to do NLP, say for your thesis, you can probably explore deep learning, but you have to take note that when you do deep learning, you need to have a lot of data, okay? Because it's quite demanding, it's quite resource expensive for it to really be at near human level type of performance. You need to have a lot of data for it to really know the examples and then the structure, okay? So again, I'll show you an example later on. Maybe I can skip this part. Okay, so the basic NLP research framework looks like this, okay? Simplified version. First, you have to collect your data in natural language. So again, we're dealing with natural language here. So what type of natural language or what manifestation of natural language will you collect for you to create an NLP model or an NLP system? Okay, so a few examples here, text or speech. So you can actually collect tweets, you can collect voice recordings, you can collect, I'm not sure if you can collect Facebook posts because it's not that easy. You can analyze responses from a survey and so on, okay? As long as it's written or as long as it's in the form of a speech recording, then you can do NLP. And then after collecting your data, let's say I have my data already, you can apply the algorithms. Okay, so again, the left part is the language, the middle part is the processing. So you are going to apply your algorithms, your statistics, your math to understand the pattern. Okay, understand the structure, the pattern from your data. And then after doing that, then you can have your model. Okay, so the model is just the learned representation of your data with the help of your algorithm. Okay, you can see how I'm connecting these three things. Again, the model is just a representation of the pattern of your data here using your algorithms. Okay. So this is another example of the NLP research framework. You have your text, you have your language here, the language part. Again, it's either text or speech. And then you have your processing part here, implementation of algorithms, tools, software engineering if you want to create an interface for your NLP system. And then after combining them both, then you can have your insights or you can have your model. Okay, so best of both worlds. You need to have the data in the form of natural language, and you need to have or you need to know the processing part. You need to be knowledgeable in different tools and different techniques in processing language. And some technical aspects as well. So if you're good at creating software, if you're good at creating interfaces, then at some point in your NLP research, that can definitely help. Okay. So again, best of both worlds, you need to have the language part, you need to have the processing part to be able to do NLP. Okay. Okay. So now for the example part. So I've shown you the NLP research framework. What else? Different types of doing NLP, rule-based, machine learning, deep learning, and then some of the examples here. So what are real manifestations or real examples of NLP research that you can relate to? Okay, so I'm going to show here some of my own research products or researches in NLP. So the first one is understanding sentiments of Filipinos during typhoons. So this is actually my undergraduate thesis with my fellow classmates back then, Sheila, Jerome, and then our advisors, Ma'am Lani. Okay, I'm not sure if maybe you can read the file at CSIT. I'm sure it's there, or maybe you can email me if you want to get a copy of the thesis. So how can we understand sentiments of Filipinos during a typhoon, and what does that tell us about? What does that tell regarding us as Filipinos? Okay, so in doing this NLP research, we have to collect data first. So sentiments. What platform is usually used by Filipinos to air or to publish their sentiments, their thoughts online? It's Twitter. Okay, so we collected around 90,000 tweets using the hashtags YolandaPH, BangonPH, and hashtag BangonPilipinas for a particular time frame. Okay, November 1, 2013 to January 1, 2014. So that's 2 months, or actually that's 1 month before and after the Typhoon Yolanda. And we want to think of, or we want to understand what people are talking about before the typhoon, during the typhoon, and then after the typhoon. Okay, so that's something that will tell us about for us being Filipinos. And we use deep learning technique because we have arguably a lot of data, a lot of tweets to understand the semantics behind each tweet. So we tried to classify, we tried to teach the model to recognize which tweets are positive, about positive sentiments, which tweets are about negative, and which ones do not convey emotions. So they can be neutral. Okay. So this is the type of architecture that we use. It's not the most complex, but it helped us understand the sentiments or the underlying meaning. So you have here positive, negative, and neutral. We try to feed the sentence or an example tweet here. The true Filipino spirit is unbendable. There's always hope for better tomorrow. Okay, so that particular sentence will be processed by the neural network, and then it will decide if it's positive, negative, or neutral. Okay, and then we got this graph here as an example graph for the month of January. So which category of tweets are prominent? Okay, which categories of tweet are prominent? Is it the positive, negative, or neutral? So based from the graph, it's the positive. Okay, positive tweets of prayers, messages of hope, were the prominent tweets for the month of January after the Typhoon Yolanda. Okay, so you would expect Filipinos to be very sensitive and what they call is emphatic towards the people of the Visayas region because of what they're seeing online. Okay, and there are a few negatives as well. And then we also plotted them on a on a map, Philippine map, to see how each type of tweet is placed or their displacement in the map. So this is just a picture of the map. I don't have the copy anymore of the software that we developed, probably from my group mate. But as you can see, it's the NCR that are the most active in terms of publishing and saying their thoughts and sentiments online. Okay, so you can actually do more about this visualization. You can try to trace which region is the most active aside from NCR, and how can you relate their cultural background to how they tweet. Okay, so that those things can be explored in the future, or if you want to learn more about the cultural background of social media engagement in the Philippines. And then here you have modeling themes from COVID-19 public reports. So I did this type of research in the middle of the pandemic 2020. I think it was July or June. And this was published in my Medium account and in DLSU's COVID research portal, because I was a master's student back then. So this was included there. So if you all know, here in Manila, we have a very active mayor, Mayor Isko Moreno, and then he maintains 2 active Twitter accounts. You have his account named after him, and then the Manila Public Information Office account, where announcements are being published every day on a daily basis. So ganun siya ka-active. Okay? And after looking at the accounts, I noticed something from the comment sections or the reply sections of each tweet. It says here that usually people comment different types of things, such as their observations, their complaints, their thoughts and sentiments directed towards the mayor, and they want action. Okay, so for example here, I'm not sure if you can see my examples. It says here, let me just read an example. Yung barangay po namin, walang pakialam, yung chairman, walang curfew, kaya lahat ng bata nasa labas pa at may mga nagiinuman. So this is from a certain person living in Manila trying to tell Mayor Isko Moreno that this is what's happening in my barangay. Okay, so I want you as a mayor to take some action, to do something with regards to what is happening. And as you can see here, you have 20 likes or 20 hearts for the tweet, which is an example of an affirmation from other people. Okay, so they agree to this particular sentiment. And you can see other sentiments as well, such as barangay officials not doing anything, police, racist police, what else? Mostly on barangay officials and public officials. So how can we, the question that I asked during that time is, how can we collectively understand what these people are talking about without reading each one by one? Because that's going to be tedious. If Mayor is going to read the comment one by one, it's probably going to take him more than a month to do so, or more than a month to complete the task. So we have to resort to computational methods. We have to resort to NLP to help us give an overview of what these people are talking about. Okay. So what I did is I collected replies, tweet replies from the 2 accounts that I mentioned. Okay, starting from February to April, or March to April. And then I plotted here the trend of the growth of tweet replies as we progressed through time, starting from March 1 to April 6. So bakit kaya may mga spikes dito sa graph? What does that mean? What are the events that happened which caused people to really go to Twitter and tell Mayor Isko to do something, to do this, to do that. This is what happening in our barangay and so on. So when I trace the events, there is a certain trend for each spike that you see here. Okay, the first spike from March 7 to 9, this is where Mayor suspended classes for the entire week. Okay? So, nung panahon na yun, sobrang happy pa ng mga estudyante kasi 1 week walang pasok, di ba? But you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So, carefree pa lang yung mga tao, no classes, maybe COVID will go away in a few weeks or so. It did not. It did not go away. And what happened is the announcement of lockdown after a few days of the declaration of the class suspension. So ayan na, ito na yung lockdown. Whole Luzon put into lockdown. So what happened is a lot of people more and more people aired their sentiments, their thoughts, their worries online in Mayor Isko's Twitter accounts. That's why you can see a very long spike here in the amount of tweets sent during that time. Okay. And then in the middle of the lockdown, this is probably where fear has set in to people. Okay. A lot of people are losing jobs. A lot of people can't go out. So we don't know what's going to happen. Hindi natin alam kung anong next days, anong mangyayari in the next few days, next few weeks. Will this COVID-19 lockdown stretch for years? And it did. So in the middle of the lockdown, more and more people are saying something again to the accounts. So you can see the third spike. And then the fourth spike here, probably the highest one in the middle of March and April, is the extension of the lockdown. Okay, so what people are fearing happened. So mas na-extend yung lockdown. The suffering is being prolonged. So that's why they again resorted to Twitter and then tried to tell Mayor what is happening, what type of benefit will we get, are there any relief goods, and so on. So you can see from the pattern of, let's say, the fluctuation of tweets is supported by real events. Okay. So this is an example of how we can use NLP to understand certain events backed by data. Okay. And then I used topic modeling, which is an unsupervised machine learning algorithm, to understand what are the main topics or what are the main subjects that people are talking about. Okay, so this answers the question, what's the overall main thoughts of the people without reading each of the sentiments. Okay, so doing that, you have four major central themes from the collected data. Number one, continuous declaration of needs. People were continuously saying or targeting Mayor Isko to properly distribute relief goods and cash. They were also telling Mayor to watch over certain barangay officials because if I remember it correctly, we were given 1,000 pesos twice during the first lockdown, but a reduced amount was being given instead of 1,000 pesos. So yung 1,000 mo naging 100 na lang or 200 after ibigay kay barangay captain. Okay? So that's what people were telling Mayor Isko. And then you have abuse and negligence of barangay captains and police. There were also some instances where people were trying to tell Mayor that this is what's happening at night. There are no proper implementation of rules, of protocols here in Manila. So they were trying to tell Mayor about that. And other themes as well. So for example, use of tricycles for ferrying COVID patients. There were some people who were requesting mayor to lift the ban from public transportation, especially with tricycles, because they don't have ways to transport COVID positive patients from their homes to the hospital. And then the last one is the petition, mostly from students, petition to suspend classes in NCR indefinitely. Okay, which happened eventually. Um, so yes, these are the themes that were present after collectively analyzing the data, the tweet data from March to April. Okay, so this can probably help government officials to, it can help them with the decision making process if they can have this type of resource which stems from the actual people, okay, stems from the ground, from the citizens themselves. And I was even able to pinpoint which barangay is the source of the sentiments. So I have a few examples here. You can use basic string matching or basic string manipulation to extract the barangay number and that specific phrase of complaint. Okay. So with this, if you're the mayor, then you can probably pin down different issues from different barangays and then do some certain actions to help the people. Okay. So from data to insights, doing NLP transforms your raw data, the data that you have, to useful insights or information that can be used for decision-making processes. Okay, so that's one example of NLP. Okay, so the last one, but I have to be very quick with the examples because we have to look at the research primer. The last one is an example, a project by my data science students. We investigated child pornography and exploitation on Twitter during lockdown because we saw an article from Rappler that the presence of pedophiles, of peddlers of child pornography increased during the lockdown because people were trying to get some form of income. Okay, so what happened is we collected tweets as well, tweets online, and then we were able to get the most frequent words. We were able to chain or to link different words that work together that are being used by these pedophiles, these peddlers. And then we were able to identify different roles played by these peddlers, sexual predators online. So you have people that propagate the sexual material, people who try to sell the material online, people who are very encouraging with their followers to engage with the content, and then people who are simply exploiting children. Okay, and the presence of such tweets were indeed significantly higher during the months of lockdown. Okay, from March, April, May to June, as you can see in this visualization. Okay, so those are 3 examples of some of my research with NLP and some of my with my students' research. So that's what you can do as students or as computer science students, as students who want to work with NLP. You can learn something about what's happening in the real world. You can turn raw data into an actionable type of information where you can get insights, where you can learn something about a particular event, where you can learn something about a particular concept. Okay, that's the main idea of doing NLP. You don't do NLP just because you can, but you do NLP because you're doing research. Okay, you want to learn more about something. Whatever something that is, depends on you. So I'm going to open, let's all open this file, NLP Research Primer. So this is a primer or a file containing short discussions on basic NLP processes, examples of published NLP papers by Filipino students like you, and excuse me, researchers, open source codes and repositories, and then links to online tools to help you kickstart your own NLP project. Okay. So let's open the file. It's just a PDF file hosted in a GitHub, in my GitHub account. Okay, so this is the file, a Filipino student's guide to NLP research. So you have here my slides, the one that I showed you, and then you have the actual file here. Okay, NLP Research Primer. So this is just a PDF file, but it contains a lot of resources, paper examples that you can read if you want to start doing NLP. So this is the NLP Research Primer. As you can see from the first page, this is the same NLP framework that I've shown you earlier. Starting with the data, with the collection of data, you can do some sort of transformation or pre-processing to make sure that when you are going to apply your machine learning, your statistical algorithms, you're going to get real results. Okay, and then you have the implementation of the processing itself, which is the algorithms and the mathematical formulas. Okay, so you have data analysis and modeling, such as classification and then topic discovery. So the classification part here is what I showed you with my study on understanding sentiments of Filipinos during typhoons. And then the topic discovery part here is the example of understanding what main central themes are after analyzing COVID-19 replies from the people. Okay, so we covered 2 examples of NLP, and then this document shows you how to do that. Okay, so for the collection process, you can read more about resources here. What are the available resources in Philippine languages? Because we highly encourage you to work with Philippine languages because it's our own languages. Okay, and then just a form of patriotism and loving your own. There's no better person to do NLP with Filipino or other Philippine languages than you, a Filipino yourself. Okay, so you can read more about the papers here, how to collect properly, how to collect data online, how to build corpus of data in Philippine languages, how to make sure that you can use them for research. Okay, and then you can also you also have here target venues. If you manage to, or if you were able to create a paper or do your research, these are target conferences that you can submit the paper to. Okay, so pre-processing steps here as well. Tokenization, you have text transformation and linguistic analysis. So I highly suggest you to read the papers here because it's very descriptive. These papers will guide you on how to extract different properties from texts and how to use them for your NLP research. Okay, so these papers are written by students, so they are at the same level as you. So you're probably going to enjoy reading the paper and then probably say place yourselves at their shoes and then think of how they were able to do the research. Okay. Okay, supervised learning or classification is again an example of what I showed you here. How do we classify tweets to 3 different categories: positive, negative, and neutral? So this is the complete step-by-step process for that. So you have your data collection, which can be in the form of tweets, Facebook posts, or news articles. You can do some pre-processing stuff here, such as language identification. If you only want to work with Filipino language, then you can do language identification to remove tweets that are not in Filipino. And you can do data annotation and pre-processing to help you add more information about your data. So for example, part of speech tagging here, what are the different parts of speech in a sentence? For example, nouns, verbs, adverbs, and so on. How can you detect code switching? Because for us Filipinos, we tend to switch from Filipino to English and back and forth. Okay. And then you have the application of machine learning techniques such as supervised machine learning algorithms. And then you have to evaluate, okay? You have to evaluate the performance of your model. So it's like testing the capabilities of your model. So for example, here in my research, here in my example research that I showed you, we got, if I remember it correctly, we obtained around 70% accuracy in terms of classifying tweets to positive, negative, and neutral. Okay, so 70%. That's actually a really good score, but it's only domain specific. Okay, domain specific or specific to tweets related to typhoon. So again, you have to evaluate your model. Probably think of its possible weaknesses, where it's good at, where it's not good at, because you are training a model with machine learning. It's capable of learning some sort of pattern. So you want to understand how much it has learned from your training, okay, or how much it has learned given some sort of data. So again, I highly recommend you as well to read some of these papers on doing classification type of research. So you have here papers from Ma'am Lani and Ma'am Jen, and some of my papers as well on readability and on typhoon related tweets. Okay. And then you have here the last one is the topic discovery. So topic discovery is basically trying to uncover central themes or central topics from a large corpus. Because you don't have time to read, let's say, if you have hundreds and thousands of tweets, is it practical to read all of them to get to understand what they're trying to say? That's the hard part. But if you want to be smart with doing that process, then you can use natural language processing, such as topic discovery, or sometimes it's also called thematic analysis or topic analysis, to extract the main themes from a large collection of text. So again, you can have tweets, news articles, Facebook posts, and blogs. You can do the same data filtering and processing, and then you can use algorithms specifically for clustering and for extracting topics. Okay, in my example here, I'm not sure why Zoom works this way, but okay. So in my example here, what did I mention? I used BTM. BTM is a bi-term topic modeling, which is a machine learning algorithm for topic modeling, for extracting themes, but they work for short texts, okay? Because tweets are short texts. They are only 240 characters. So I use that particular type of algorithm for extracting the themes. And then you can have here result evaluation as well to test how good your model is. It can classify or it can extract themes, but up to what certain level of performance, okay? So there's always this result evaluation to understand how your model has performed. And again, you have here papers that I want you to read to understand more about doing topic modeling or topic discovery, okay? So more and more papers when doing NLP, because that's the only way of learning the entire picture. How do people apply NLP for a particular data? How do they transform raw data from patterns to implementations which can benefit humans, okay? So for example here, discovering themes from online articles on the 2018 Mount Mayon eruption, okay? So as someone living in Bicol, we live in Bicol, including me, how does online news article talk about Mayon eruption, and how can it help us as citizens of that particular area, okay? So you can gauge your NLP research to timely events. Okay, so for example, in my case, I used NLP for understanding COVID-19 responses. I used NLP for understanding typhoon-related tweets during the Typhoon Yolanda. So you can do that type of research. Okay, and here resources, you have links to different data sets that you can use for your study. Okay, so for example, the PLOC, or the Philippine Languages Online Corpora, you have tweets, word nets, dictionaries, tag datasets, multilingual corpora, religious and parallel, and so on, that you can use for your research. So if you want to say work on machine translation, you can make use of the parallel multilingual corpus. Okay, because for machine translation, you need to have data. You need to have texts in this particular language and then this particular language. So an example is Bicol in English. So if you want to do an NLP research of translating from English to Bicol and back and forth, you have to have data. Okay, and you can have different sites from here as well, different websites from various NLP researchers in the Philippines. You have NLP NAS and then NLP Phil, which is from the Computing Society of the Philippines. So you can browse these resources, and maybe you can find something that will benefit you when doing NLP research. Okay, so I leave you with the exploration part. And then you also have here models and tools for understanding texts. You have here, for example, in my case, I have here Filipino linguistic extractors. So if you want to learn more, or if you want to extract properties of Filipino text, such as getting the syllable patterns, getting the lexical patterns or morphology, you can implement or use this resource or this code base. Okay, it's written in Python, so you can reproduce the results from my papers here in the citation. Okay, and then you have here online tools for collecting tweets. You have Twint, or you can also make use of the Twitter API, just like what I have here, for collecting tweets. You can use language tools and 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤. 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤 is particularly a favorite of mine, because it's very easy to do your machine learning experiments, it's interface based. So if you're not the type of person who, if you're the type of person who want quick results of applications of machine learning, let's say with numerical or text data, you can use Weka. Okay. So you can explore Weka as a tool for doing NLP or doing machine learning in general. Okay. So I only have a few minutes left. So I trust that you will read this file here as well as the papers that are included there. So I would like to give you certain ideas of what NLP research you can do or what mini projects you can do on your free time so that you can practice doing NLP. Okay. Okay, this one, NLP mini projects. You can do a hate speech classifier. Okay, ask yourselves what words make a text contain hate speech or not. Okay, so when you say hate speech, it's a malicious text targeting a particular group of people. So for example, with regards to race, with regards to ethnicity. So what words can be classified as hate speech or not? Okay, so you can do simple string matching given a collection of text. Static string-based chatbots. So you can actually also replicate or create a low-tech version of a chatbot with string matching or similarity algorithms to intelligently match answers to queries. So when I mention about, let's say, registration, what will your chatbot say? When I mention about borrowing books, what will your chatbot say, or what will be the response? So you can use string matching, simple string matching algorithms to match responses to presence of words in a question. Okay. You can also do the same with spell checking and maybe sentiment analysis with dictionaries. So for example, if the word bad is mentioned, that's -1. If the word good is mentioned, that's +1. So you resolve the total points of a certain text. And then if it's negative, then it's going to be negative. If going to be a negative sentiment, but if it's positive, then positive. Okay. And some NLP thesis worthy projects here that I can think of. Maybe you can have some form of variation with this one. Automated essay scoring tool for a language. So for example, if you are a Filipino teacher or if you are an English teacher, checking essays can sometimes be very tedious. Okay, so for example, if you're handling 3 sections and you ask each student to write an essay, it's difficult to read all of them. Okay, it's time consuming. You can actually teach, or you can actually create an NLP model to gauge or to automatically score essays. Okay, just by looking at the cohesiveness, the organization of the essay, the relevant topics that are present, and if the essay is grammatically correct or not. So that's something that you can do as a thesis, okay? But you need to have data for that. Another example would be suicide ideation detection from social media posts. So how can we teach machines to flag or to recognize a person having suicidal ideation or having thoughts about suicide? Okay, so if he or she or they are commenting about certain or if they are posting with words about, say, depression or hurting themselves, then maybe you can use NLP to catch that, okay, to try to flag that this person is about to form suicidal thoughts. So What can we do about that? Okay. So those are examples of, let's say, using natural language to help people. Okay, help people. May they be teachers or regular people, common people, and so on. Okay, just examples of NLP projects that you can work on. There are hundreds and thousands of different problems that you can tackle that can probably help you understand with NLP. Okay, so I have 9:47. That the time is 9:47. So maybe I can end the talk there. Okay, some advice before we end. When doing NLP, you have to assess your skill set and domain knowledge. Okay, so you may encounter, or let's say if you have your research problem, you may feel a little bit unqualified. Okay, but that's normal. Okay, you may feel that you don't know you don't know how to use certain tools, certain libraries. You don't have background knowledge on this particular concept in linguistics or in the NLP study that you are trying to work on. That's normal. We have all been there. Okay, when I was a student, when I was a third year student, I don't know anything about NLP, but eventually it became my thesis topic. Okay, so I started from zero. I only know, say, I only know C, your traditional programming languages, your C, C++, and so on. But then when we did our research, we had to use Python. So I had to start from scratch and so on. Okay, so those things are normal. You have to have a clear goal and well-defined problem, because you need to think of what type of insights or outputs are you really trying to achieve. Okay, if you want to create an NLP system that has, say, an interface, then make sure that you are prepared to do that. Okay, and a clear goal, you have to lay down specifically what research objectives are you going to try to achieve, your specific research milestones, and your advisor is going to help you with that as well. Ensure resources are available. This one is very true, because if you don't have the data that will be required for doing a specific NLP task, then you cannot move on with your research, or you cannot start your research. So for example, if you don't have the capability to get, let's say, Facebook posts, then probably it's best to think of other platforms where you can collect. So Facebook, it's very difficult to collect from Facebook. So maybe you can try other platforms like TikTok or YouTube, if the data is suitable for your research. Okay. So research how you will represent your data as features. There are multiple ways of pre-processing your data, but some of them are maybe not what you're trying to look for. So for example, part of speech tags is basically your nouns, your adverbs, your adjectives. But you have to question yourself if you really need those particular information for your research. So if you're doing sentiment analysis, maybe it's good to do that. But if you're doing, let's say, topic modeling, where you just need to extract the main topics, then you can skip that particular part. Okay, so you have a lot of processes that you can do with NLP, but you don't need to do all of them. Only the essential part with respect to your research. Inspect your model and evaluate correctly with existing baseline. So this is traditional research practice. If you are training or if you are creating NLP systems, you have to gauge them or you have to test them. How good are they performing? So for example, in terms of a range from 1 to 100%, how good is this particular model in classifying sentiments such as positive, negative, or neutral. Can this model get at least 70%, 60%, or 50%? If so, then what are its weaknesses? So you also need to analyze that particular part. What are its weaknesses? What are its strengths in doing processing? Okay, so evaluation is very important, especially for thesis topics. Okay, so maybe we can end there because we only have until 10. So it's 9:52. I'm very happy to answer questions from students because I was a student myself at BU. And then again, when I was a third year, I wasn't sure about what my thesis topic would be. I don't know what to do for my thesis. But then eventually NLP, someone decided to host a talk about NLP, and then well, I became interested, and then one thing led to another. So yun, that's why I work now with NLP as my main research area. Okay, so maybe we can have the question and answer portion. Are there any questions from the students? That ends my talk. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that I was able to give you a very short but small introduction of NLP, and then I hope to inspire as well in using NLP for the greater good. Okay, we don't do NLP just because we can, but we also think of the future greater good, which will benefit people in general. Okay, so any questions, guys?
All right, so NLP sure has a lot of intricacies in its inner workings, but in the surface, it's really a useful medium for a wide array of applications to the modern world. So thank you, Sir Marvin, for providing such insightful researches on your own notions regarding NLPs. So talagang lalo ngayon na pandemic, napakadaming applications ng NLPs. So now that we are done with the discussion of our speaker, let's proceed with the Q&A part. So if you have any questions, kindly proceed to the link which can be found in tinyurl.com/researchtalk Q&A, or you can access slide.do and enter the code 434486. So we can only accommodate a limited number of questions since we are going in a limited time span. So we have our first question here for Sir Joseph. Do you have a recommended model to use on chatbots, specifically on business purposes like online shops and restaurants, like answering queries of clients?
Sorry, the question is what's the best? Can you repeat the question?
You have a recommended model to use for chatbots. I think this is pertaining to a business model.
Oh, okay. So it depends on the data that you have, because if you have, let's say, a lot of data, maybe you have hundreds and thousands of question pairs, because that's the type of data that is used for chatbots. So you have this question, and then you have this correct type of answer that can be supplied to the question. So it depends. It depends on the data, and it also depends on how powerful you want your chatbot should be, or how powerful you want your chatbot to be. Just to give you an overview, there are string-based chatbots which only analyzes certain keywords from a question. And then once they see the keyword, you have a particular predefined answer. Okay, so as I've shown earlier, or as I've said earlier, pag narinig mo may mga chatbots na kapag pag nakita yung word na registration, ito na yung sasagot nila. Pag may chatbots na nakita yung question na may word na enrollment date, ito na yung sasagot nila. Okay, so those are predefined. But there are chatbots that are conversational. Ibig sabihin, they seemingly can replicate the way humans talk, okay? How humans converse. So you can see that they're with their responses, parang fluent, pero sometimes hindi tama yung sagot, but again, it's conversational. So it depends on on how powerful you want your chatbot to be. In terms of model terms, you can use what you call transformer-based models. So these transformer-based models are very powerful models. They have been trained with millions of data from Wikipedia, from online corpuses, and then they can replicate, or they have the same ability to talk or to converse with humans. Well, not that powerful, but at an acceptable level. So you can use transformer-based models. You can also train from scratch, but again, you would need to you would need to collect an ample amount of question and answer pairs, okay, of as data set. But just to give you an idea, yung trend ngayon sa machine sa paggawa ng chatbots, transformer-based models. Okay, you can fine tune them to be able to be used with chatbot development or question and answering systems. Okay, so transformer, yun ang sagot ko, recommended model.
Alright, so ating recommended model is ang transformer model. Pero napaka-interesting rin ng conversational chatbot kasi hindi mo rin alam na AI pala ang kausap mo.
Yes.
So let us proceed with the second question. We have, how can we make NLP handle text that has opposite meanings? For example, A is the first letter in the alphabet versus A is not the first letter in the alphabet.
I'm not sure what you mean by the question. A is the letter, first letter of the alphabet, versus A is not the first letter in the alphabet. Can you give other examples? Examples of the question? Opposite meanings, is this more of, let's say, handling the creativity of human languages? For example, idiomatic expressions or something like that. Is that the same type of NLP that is being asked?
Yes, I think this is how the computer distinguishes between different letters.
Okay, so those things are in the encoding type, okay, which computers are very good at handling. So it's more of how you pre-process that text for your model to be able to recognize them. So for example, you can pre-process your text first to extract features such as, say, pag ganito yung word na na-encounter, this is the corresponding meaning. Okay, so for example, you can also tie in the letter A with whatever meaning you want the computer to recognize after seeing letter A. Okay, so it's in the pre-processing step. If regarding your question, I'm not sure if I answered that correctly. If you give me more example, then probably I can.
Siguro, sir, it distinguishes a word with a lot of meanings. So ganun ata so yung pagka-formulate ng question. For example, a can, which is kung ano ba siya, like lata ba siya or yung can of magagawa, ganun po, sir, or an action po.
Okay, so yeah, I now I get it. Words with different meanings. There is a particular field in NLP called word sense disambiguation. Words can have multiple meanings. Even phrases can have multiple meanings. So it's a challenge for NLP models to pin down or to target which is the correct meaning for a particular word given context. So if you want to solve that particular problem, let's say in Filipino, 'di ba, madami tayong words na maraming meaning, phrases na maraming meaning, like your expressions and so on. Context-based models can probably handle that. But context-based models require a lot of data as well. So if you have, I'll go back to my answer earlier. Since a transformer model is a context-based model, you can start off with that resource and then use it to test its capability for Filipino. Kasi meron namang Filipino version ng transformer models. Okay? Yung tawag doon ay BERT, B-E-R-T. BERT transformer model. So I hope I shed some light regarding the question on word sense disambiguation. Any more questions?
Yes, it sure is a very insightful answer. So thank you, Mr. Joseph, once again. So there is another question here. I think this is for the aspiring NLP who will be taking NLP careers. What is the needed hardware for NLP?
Hardware, it depends on what type of NLP you will work on. If you're going to use your traditional machine learning based NLP, rule based NLP, you don't need expensive hardware. But this will change if you want to work on really powerful models such as deep learning models, which requires hardware to train. Okay, so if you're more of a if you want to achieve or if you want to work on powerful models with the use of neural networks and deep learning, then you have to invest with hardware. But there are also options where you can use cloud services. So hindi mo na kailangan bumili ng sarili mong GPUs or hardware. Just avail hourly or monthly expenses for training. Okay, if you want that particular option. It depends on the task. It depends on the type of NLP regarding what hardware will be needed.
All right, so you heard it first. It depends on the type of task that you need. So that ends the question and answer portion for today's webinar. So let us proceed with the awarding ceremony. The BU Access is giving this certificate of appreciation to Sir Joseph Marvin R. Imperial, MSCS, in grateful recognition for his invaluable contribution as resource speaker for the webinar entitled Research Talk. So let us now proceed with the awarding ceremony. We are giving this certificate of appreciation to Sir Joseph Marvin R. Imperial, MSCS, in grateful recognition for his invaluable contribution as resource speaker for the webinar entitled Research Talk, a primer to natural language processing, NLP, given this second day of March 2022. Signed by Mr. John Patrick M. Prieto, our BU Access Secondary Representative, and our BU Access President and Event Head, Mr. Justin J. Baldovino, and of course, we have Ma'am Lani L. Maceda, DIT, our BUCS Associate Professor. And so I'm kindly asking our speaker if we could take a screenshot with you with our certificate. All right, so for the picture taking, I'm going to take a screenshot. So 1, 2, 3. All right, this is 1, 2, 3. Alright, so now I am kindly asking everyone to turn on their cameras for the photo opportunity. So para makita natin ng ating magagandang smiles, tayo ay mag-on cam po. Yes, mukhang may mga humahabol pa. Yes, on cam lang kayo guys. Kita namin ang inyong mga smiles sa umagang to. Alright, so 1, 2, 3. Alright, isa pa para sa kabilang block. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, marami pa. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Thank you everyone for turning on their cameras. So now that we are done with the photo opportunity, it is time to introduce our dear Associate Professor from BUCS for her closing remarks. So let us warmly welcome Ma'am Lani L. Maceda.
Thank you. Thank you, Lian. First, of course, I'm so happy. Thank you, Joseph. You know what? I'm really feel so proud of Joseph that he's really doing well on his chosen field. If you hear about it, diba, he mentioned that he actually when he's a third year, he in fact doesn't know what topic he wants for his thesis, and it's true because I'm part of his journey. And then when he decided to take the path of NLP, and then I'm happy because even until to his masters, and even until to his recent researches, it's actually the domain that he chose. And nakita nyo naman, di ba, he has study with ISCO, and then all the papers he has was presented in the international conferences, and he is being awarded. In fact, he was awarded by De La Salle University for his study, and this is one milestone for me as professor, and then as his advisor on the undergrad. This is actually a milestone for me also. The milestone for a faculty member is to see his student succeed on the chosen field, that you had been part of his journey on undergrad. And this is one motivation for everyone. I could see, of course, all my students are here, the second year. And then I had seen also some of the third year COMSI here. And we invited the third year because this is also in preparation, because basically the purpose of the subject is in preparation for the thesis. And Joseph, thank you, because one call away yan lagi si Joseph with nothing in return. So he always finds time for us. If it's BU, he's calling his services, and then to share his expertise with no second thought. He always say yes. Thank you, Joseph. And by the way, there's some who is sending message to me if they could actually request for a copy of some of your paper. I told them to send email to you, to send a personal mail to you. Okay, so I also thank you, Joseph, and then I also want to thank the access officers for extending their help to my students in second year, because supposedly this activity is for the second year, but then I appreciate the effort being extended by access. So I would like to thank the president, Justine Baldovino, our second year representative, John Patrick Prieto, the finance officer, Christopher Alcantara, the junior counselor, Lian Geoffrey de Duque, our MC also, our host, the deputy finance officer, Roland Alavera, the external vice president, John Robert Van Dort, our technical, I think, then the secretary, Alexandra Bea Alerta. So thank you, Access, for helping us. And of course, I would like to thank for the attendance of all our second year COMSI students, and also sa the third year. And I don't know if there are other year level who attended this, but thank you everyone for your attendance. Again, Joseph, thank you, and have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you po, Sir Marvin, for the insightful talk.
Alright, thank you po, Ma'am Lani, for those very warm words para sa ating speaker and sa ating BU Access student body and sa mga participants natin today. But before that, Mr. Sir Joseph, our BU Access body is requesting kung pwede po sa'yo mag-email ng mga questions.
Yes, you may send me an email.
Alright po.
Yeah. Have I shown you my email? Or maybe I can just send it here in the chat box.
Yes, I think you can drop it po sa ating chat box para makita ng ating participants rin.
Ian, can I also thank the Access Advisor, Dr. Benedicto Balilo, and then also to our department chair, Sir Ryan Rodriguez, and to some other faculty members of the CSIT. Thank you.
Alright, so na-drop na ang ating email. So kung may mga queries po kayo kay Sir Joseph, kindly send an email po. And na-drop na rin ang kanyang website. So now I think that we are near to the conclusion of our program. But before that, we are kindly requesting our participants to please answer the evaluation form. So kindly, next slide na po. Ayan, ang ating evaluation form which can be found in tinyurl.com/researchtalkevaluation and nisend na rin po sa chat box for your convenience. And kung gusto nyo rin po na mag-scan ng QR code, we have the QR code that is flashed on the screen. So now I would like to thank everyone, our guests, our participants who have attended our said program. Your participation is very invaluable. And of course, let us also recognize our speaker, Mr. Joseph, for his very insightful talk tungkol sa NLPs. And let us not forget Ma'am Lani Macedo for her support and for hosting this program. And palakpakan din po natin ang ating BU Access student body dahil po sa kanila, hindi po to magkakaroon na event na to. So thank you everyone for your participation in this event. So this is Lian Jenfi Duque, ang taong hindi marunong matulog sa gabi, your Access Junior Counselor and host for today's event, signing off. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.